Hey there, Jenn here, back on the Biden beat. And in case you missed what this is all about, Lucy Flores, a former Assemblywoman of Nevada, came forward and said that Joe Biden in 2014 attended a campaign rally in support of her, but approached her from behind and touched, kissed, sniffed the hair of her inappropriately. So imagine someone coming up behind you, grabbing you, giving you a slow kiss on the back of the head, and sniffing your hair. That would make you highly uncomfortable. Well, now Lucy Flores has come forward and said that she was made to be uncomfortable. And some people are saying, oh, Lucy's exaggerating, or why did she wait to come forward? But we need to listen to Lucy, and in particular because there's photo and video evidence of him doing the very same thing to many other women and even young children. So this story is one I find to be extremely important, not only because women were made to feel uncomfortable, but also because Joe Biden is considered to be the front runner in some of these polls that are coming out, like the latest Quinnipiac poll, except for he hasn't announced his run yet, or if he will at all. And who knows if he will, now that these accusations have been brought to, accusation has been brought to the front, here. So let's get into the latest. Mika Brzezinski said something quite troubling this morning on Morning Joe. So that's what I'm going to start off showing you. Basically, Lucy Flores was always a Bernie supporter in 2016. This year she has not announced, and I'll show you that, who she's supporting. But Mika here has decided that because she was a Bernie supporter, it needs to be mentioned or brought up in relation to what Biden did to her. So let's make this.
So we're not.
Well, no, you just did.
But rewind.
Are we allowed to bring up that Lucy Flores is a huge Bernie person and she has, political connections that might be counter to Biden's goals, and that this could be, hold on, is it okay to bring up this could be politically motivated, or are we just supposed to take all the words and the fact that she says she was violated at face value? Are we supposed to just leave it there?
Well,
and have this sort of attack on his credibility and his honor just sit there? Or are we allowed to talk about it? Or are we allowed to demand?
You can bring it up, Mika, if you want your Twitter feed to look like your Twitter feed's going to look today. But it seems to me that, again,
so we're not.
Well, no, you just did. And what I'm saying is that, the conversation has to be had. It has to be an open conversation. And as you've been saying, and as other people have been saying, the argument, all women must be believed, period. That's the end of the conversation. That was the argument 6 months ago. That was the argument when Al Franken was run out of town, run out of Washington, D.C., when what Donald Trump has done is so much more abhorrent. That conversation seems to have been moving along. I suppose I'm not allowed to say this because I'm a male, but just as an observer, that conversation has moved along too. Women need to be believed, women need to be heard, but there has to be due process out there. And you got to hear both sides. And what I heard this past weekend was, after the initial rush of stories, is all women should be believed, all women should be heard, but then all men should be heard. There has to be due process. Well, there has to be some balance. But I will tell you whether.
Okay, so that's enough of good old Mika and Joe. Obviously, Mika has an establishment point of view. She comes at this as an establishment person, and I'm actually surprised that Joe seemed to be the more reserved person on this topic, because he's a conservative, and the way that people come at the Me Too movement is different depending on political ideology. And it was interesting what he was saying, but the main point here is that Mika was saying, because Lucy Flores was a Bernie supporter, we need to look into that. We need to look more into her motivations, instead of realizing that Lucy came forward because she realized the time was for her to come forward. And I'm sure Lucy was aware of, or has been made aware of, the fact that there are photos and videos of the very same thing that happened to her out there on the web. And so maybe she felt like she needed to be the first voice to come out and say this. Maybe it was done in protection of both herself and all the other women and children that this has been done to by Joe Biden. So I also want to point out that Lucy has not endorsed anyone yet this campaign season. She has not endorsed Bernie for 2020. She hasn't endorsed anyone to this point. And we can see that right here in Lucy's own words. She says, "To set the record straight, I haven't endorsed any presidential candidate, including Sanders. But even if I had endorsed someone, that doesn't erase the multiple pictures, articles, and the well-known open secret about Biden's inappropriate behavior. This should have been addressed long ago." And we also have Ken Thomas, who's a political reporter for the Wall Street Journal, reported, "Lucy Flores, a Sanders surrogate in 2016, told me she hasn't decided yet which 2020 candidate she'll support, but plans on attending Beto O'Rourke's rally in El Paso tomorrow." So, as far as we know, Lucy hasn't endorsed anyone. She's not favoring anyone. She did go to the campaign rally of Beto O'Rourke. And, you know, on a personal level, I don't like Beto. You know, it's up to you who you like and don't like based on policy. And if Lucy makes the choice to be a surrogate for Beto, that's, again, her choice. If she decides to support Bernie, that's, again, her choice. It doesn't change the fact of what Biden has done. And people need to remember that. Mika, it doesn't matter at all who Lucy Flores supported in 2016. That you would even bring that up is absolutely absurd. And Joe mentioned that her Twitter mentions are going to be completely bananas today, and she deserves it because her point is completely invalid. And the look on her face while she was saying that, too, was just like a look of disgust and contempt for Lucy and for the fact that she had supported Bernie. It was really just a disturbing scene there with Mika. So Lucy is not staying silent. She's actually gone on NBC this morning with Hallie Jackson. So let's see what she said. She doesn't mention the Mika and Joe thing, but she does continue on and state her true feelings. She's a very strong woman, and she's not afraid to say what she really thinks.
For me, in this situation, it was unwanted. It was a shock. For me, in this situation, it was unwanted. It was shocking because of the power difference. Context is also important here.
That's the first clip. There's a second one. Just wait 1 second here.
His behavior, this aspect of it.
Do you believe that in this conversation there is space for acknowledgement and redemption here, or do you believe this should be disqualifying for Joe Biden?
So I've answered this question many times in saying that personally, I do not believe that he should run. I think that there is a wonderful, amazing field of candidates, and I'm very progressive, and so I believe that an agenda that takes into account the changing culture that we are experiencing right now, that women are feeling like we can speak up for ourselves, and whether it's an inappropriate touching or whether it's, you know, obviously something very severe, but then also that men understand that there are boundaries that they need to respect. For me, Mr. Biden is not my candidate. However, I fully respect that people are going to make their own decisions, and they're going to decide whether or not his behavior, this aspect of it, amongst other things. I'm also not happy with the way in which he recently responded to some recent Anita Hill questions, where he said that he wishes he could have done more, even though he actually could have done more because he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee at the time. That those things are aspects that people are going to have to take into account and make their own decision.
So there's Lucy saying, obviously Joe Biden is not her choice, and she says people make their own decision, but she says that she does not believe that he should run. This, as she said, is an open secret in DC and otherwise. Elizabeth Warren, who, as we know, is progressive, has come forward and said, I read the op-ed last night. So she's talking about Lucy's op-ed in The Cut. I believe Lucy Flores, and Joe Biden needs to give an answer. Question, should he not run as a result? Senator Warren. That's for Joe Biden to decide. So let's listen to Elizabeth Warren saying this.
I read the op-ed last night, I believe, Lucy Flores, and Joe Biden needs to give an answer. It's for Joe Biden.
Okay, so there we have a presidential candidate giving an opinion. And I should also note that Bernie has also given an opinion, and he has said, I have no reason not to believe Lucy Flores. And there isn't a reason to not believe Lucy Flores. And I'm going to show you a thread on Twitter that someone compiled of a lot, and by a lot, I mean a lot, of very disturbing photos and videos of Joe Biden doing the very thing that Lucy Flores is talking about. There are no two ways about it. Lucy's telling the truth. We have photo evidence, not of her, but of a lot of other women. When there's so much evidence compiled, Joe Biden needs to be held account, and it's so maddening that he's not, that the establishment protects him and has protected him for many, many years. Before we get to the long thread, I want to show you Eva Longoria. So as you can see right here, Law, Politics, and Football on Twitter says, everyone realizes Joe Biden publicly sniffed Eva Longoria's hair at the same fundraiser, right? Look at that. That's disgusting. So getting into the long thread, which honestly, it's so disturbing that if you are triggered by such things, I recommend you turn off the video now. Otherwise, try to watch it or look at it, because we need to know who Biden really is. And this is who Biden really is. Again, the question is whether he realizes it or does it on purpose, or if he's just that clueless. It doesn't matter. Someone long ago should have held him to account. Now Lucy Flores is, and we have all of this to prove the point. So here's one. Where he's, grabbing the young girl. This one's very disturbing.
All right, nice to see you guys. Thank you. See you back home.
So the little girl, he was grabbing her. You could tell from her face and from her body movements that she was highly uncomfortable, yet he kept doing it. And then he tried to plant a kiss on her, and she moved away. Very, very uncomfortable. Here we have another one where he's fixing the hair of a young girl, kisses her weirdly on the head, and continues to pet her. And look where he's placing his hands. This is disturbing. Another one where he grabs the young girl once again, touches her hair, whispers in her ear. In this one, he sniffs the hair.
Here we go. We gotta look up top, guys, so we don't jump, okay? Here we go.
Trying to close this one. Don't know why it's not closing. Well, that's not good. Okay. No idea why I can't get that to close. But the rest of the thread, and I'll link to it, shows Biden kissing the wives of other men right in front of them, continuing to sniff hair, grabbing, groping, you name it. The thread itself is gross, and I'm so sorry that I couldn't get it to close. I don't know why, but I didn't want you to have to sit there watching me try to click it down forever. So, believe Lucy Flores. The evidence is there. It's highly gross, and so is Mika suggesting that just because Lucy is a Bernie supporter means that she shouldn't be believed. That, at least that's what Mika was insinuating. I'm going to stay on this story because there's a lot more to it, not just the Lucy Flores angle, but the fact that this is his pattern over years and years. So stay tuned. As I said, I'm from Delaware, so there's a little hint. I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.